The Russian military says its air defenses overnight shot down 337 Ukrainian drones over 10 Russian regions. This is what appears to be one of the biggest Ukrainian drone attacks on Russia in 3 years.
Ядрит твою раз.
Это что такое? Там горело, да? Ни хрена себе дырку сделали.
Today's attack killed 3 people and wounded multiple others, and came just hours before a Ukrainian delegation was set to meet in Saudi Arabia about ending Russia's 3-year war with Ukraine. America's top diplomat Marco Rubio is in Jeddah to help negotiate an end to Europe's biggest conflict since the Second World War.
What do you hope to accomplish today?
Advisor Waltz, you expect weapons to be turned back on?
Are you hoping to get a ceasefire?
Secretary Rubio, are you open to a partial ceasefire?
Secretary Rubio, Sky News. Do you think you'll get a ceasefire?
The National Post's Adam Zivo joined us for more on the drone attack.
I think that the mass Ukrainian drone attack on Russia is an important way for the Ukrainians to illustrate to the world and to Russians specifically that there are costs associated with invading a country. Ukraine has predominantly targeted military facilities or economic facilities such as oil refineries, but it seems that in this case, some civilians have been hit, and that is deeply unfortunate. And I think that the Ukrainians should be dissuaded from hitting civilians, but at the same time, that seems to be the exception rather than the rule. Whereas with Russia, they predominantly hit civilians when they target deep into the country and only sometimes hits other infrastructure. I think one of the important things to remember here is that this Ukrainian drone strike, although it has enacted a toll upon the Russians, it's only a fraction of what the Russians do to the Ukrainians every single night, right? So at this point, almost every single night, you have hundreds of drones and some dozens of rockets sometimes coming into Ukraine and killing innocent Ukrainians. So some people may feel a sense of moral indignation when they see Ukraine's attack on Russia. This is justified retaliation against an aggressor, and it is not the same scope of what Russia is doing. I think it also illustrates that the Ukrainians are less vulnerable and less weak than many in the West might believe, or some opponents of Ukraine might want to believe. Ukraine has been developing its domestic defense industry since the war began, and Ukraine already had a well-developed defense industry, which it inherited from the Soviet Union and then developed after 2014 following Russia's shadow invasion of East Ukraine. But they've established themselves as global leaders in drone warfare. And at this point, approximately 90% of Russian casualties are caused by small drones. The fact that Ukraine is now able to send hundreds of larger drones deep into Russian territory and target Moscow itself shows that the Ukrainians can be relied upon as promising security partners, shows that they will not crumble so easily. And I think also presents some opportunities to Western partners, because if Ukraine is able to do this, and they're able to provide effective drones which can bypass Russian air defense systems, often at a fraction of the price of NATO-produced drones, then I think we should be asking them to share that technology. And I think that that's some of the value they can bring to their allies in compensation for the military aid that they have received. The important thing to consider here is that Russia has been able to maintain public support for the war by quarantining the upper middle class and middle class residents of Moscow and St. Petersburg from the impacts of the war. When your most important citizens feel as if the war is abstract, as if it's happening over there somewhere in some border region, and you can live your regular, everyday, comfortable life, then you're not going to protest so much. But if we see drones hitting oil refineries and buildings in Moscow, that increases public discontent. That ensures that Putin's grip over the country becomes slightly more brittle, and that gives Putin more of a reason to provide some level of concession to Ukraine if other levers of pressure are also applied. Regarding peace talks, some might say that this indicates that Ukraine is not interested in peace. I think that in this case, that one would be blaming the victim. Russia has sent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drones and missiles at Ukraine every single week. So they are primarily to blame for not following any desire for peace. Ukraine is simply reacting appropriately for a country that has been attacked, and it is trying to cripple the economic and military resources of a country that is killing its citizens every single day. I think that these attacks would have continued regardless of how peace talks developed, because Vladimir Putin has shown no interest in reducing his attacks against Ukraine, and it would be unfair and irrational to expect the Ukrainians to withhold any attacks on Russian territory while the Russians get to do whatever they want. We cannot expect the Ukrainians to show a commitment to peace when the Russians have shown no similar commitment themselves.